Hi, hello. Welcome to another episode of Isaiah's Newsstand. It's your host, Isaiah Edwards. How the heck are you? Hopefully, you've had a good week. For me, it's been pretty solid. Working a lot. Feeling a little better. I will say I kind of pushed myself maybe a little too soon, but I'm overall okay. I went out last night actually. Um, Friday night things. Hit up North Side. It's a little like city area for I guess those who aren't in Ohio who might be listening here. But yeah, just did some city shit. It was fun. It was cool. Now we're here. Just kind of chilling. I had some pizza for the food corner. The lovely Chameleon. Let's see. I had a cheese slice. I had a pepperoni slice, and I had a pound of very hot wings. I finally tried like the hottest they have, and I will say it was very hot, but also still very good. I think that's something that like people miss out on when it comes to heat. Is like they go, oh well, it's really hot, and for them, hot is good. And for me, that was kind of like that. But as I got older, I was like, no, I wanted to taste good and be hot. So I know I personally started scaling it down, but I was feeling frisky last night, so I tried it. Still good, loved it. Got a burp coming. Little podcast pre-game's already catching up with me. Excuse me. I guess we can get into the fucking shit here. You know how I like to do for the first episode of the week, whatever you want to call it, is do the Ukraine stuff up front, kind of get out of the way. I definitely kind of want to say too, I guess a little bit of trigger warning. This is definitely, I guess, more of a brutal episode in that kind of regard, talking about bodies, talking about death here, a lot of that. So, I mean, obviously, if you're not with that, totally get that. If you just want to skip this episode, I will definitely see you on the next one. We are going to cover a little bit of the Ketanji Brown Jackson confirmation, woo, and the Will Smith, I guess, aftermath. I know, I'm still talking about Sally. I think this is going to be the last one. But, if you just want to skip through this shit, totally get it. But I want to let you know. But starting off from the BBC News, Buch killings, satellite image of bodies contradicts Russian claims. So kind of a little bit of long short here. At the top of the week, throughout the week, there's been a lot of talk of Bucha and the atrocities that took place there, what happened, what didn't happen potentially from either, the reports that are coming out, the satellite images that are out, and then what are the Russian side of things saying in terms of like what their claims are. Very brutal, nasty shit. Kind of what we had mentioned the other week, how Russia's been withdrawing from held areas that they've been at kind of in the top of this war, this invasion. And, in doing so, now Ukrainians are able to go into these towns. Journalists are obviously able to come with. And there's just been a lot of just confirmation of more or less the worst. A lot of like execution style killings, like people with their hands bound and shot and just left out in the streets. There's been a lot of reports of people when they were being occupied that they weren't allowed to leave their homes, and or that Russians would come and occupy their homes, also using them as like human shields, so that like if there was any Ukrainian pushback, that they had people in front that they might not shoot them. There was also claims that people were being held in mass that way, not necessarily in Bucha, but like in just areas that were being held. I've heard stories, reports of rapes, things of that nature. Just really sad fucking shit. And at least in terms of the situation in Bucha, a lot of this is on camera, at least satellite image. And like, it's been tracked since Russian forces have moved into the area. And then there's also been, okay, what did it look like when they left? Russia has kind of said, oh, that's not us, this is staged. Like, Ukrainian forces moved those bodies in here, and now they're saying that it was us. They're saying that like there wasn't like rigor mortis on the body, so therefore like that's not this is like not real. They also said that like some of the bodies were like crisis actors, and that you can see in some of the footage that their bodies are moving. All of these kind of things are debunkable. With the moving bodies, you can see that it's off of an image from a camera, like a mirror, from like a driving mirror, and you can see that the image distorts in several cases, and not just on bodies. So it's like not necessarily waving or anything like that. It's just movement of the camera and pixelation. It's crazy that these things happen, and then like the counter propaganda is like, oh, we didn't do that. That's not real. It's misinformation. Like, you're being Russophobic. Like, it's crazy that is the way that they're gonna play it. But it is one of those things too where I often wonder when it comes to the conversation of war crimes, like, what is there to do? Like, the Daily did a good episode in terms of like how war crimes wind up happening, in terms of like do we prosecute these people? What comes of it? I think they mentioned a thing in Yugoslavia, I believe, which was a very interesting episode. It talked about just atrocities to people in that conflict, and the resolution there. I'm definitely not doing it justice here on this podcast, Staff Drunk, but it's one of those things where I'm very curious to see what will happen in the years to come. I'm sure this is definitely something that's going to be talked about. I mean, I already remember Googling this midweek, and it was already called the Buch massacre. It's crazy shit. And I think the scary thing is, too, that this isn't the only place, that this is probably, there's more to come. Also, on our next bump, we got this from the Washington Post. 50 dead in train station attack as Russian troops regroup in the east. So there was a missile bombing in Kramatorsk, Ukraine. 50 were killed and 98 were injured in what President Vladimir Zelensky called an evil Russian shelling attack on a train station where hundreds of civilians were attempting to flee ahead of expected attacks. So, essentially, like, it was very known, like, okay, Russia is going to be focusing more on the eastern, southern part of Ukraine and trying to occupy that. Mariupol was a big conversation point. So naturally, in these areas, they've been saying, hey, if you're in like the Donetsk region, whatever, like you should be leaving. Like, it's not going to get better. It's going to get worse before it gets better. And sure enough, Russian, forces, it's believed allegedly bombed, missile struck this train area, which is one of those things where it's like, there's no reason to do it. It's a known area. Like, this is known that there's no military force here in this train station shit. There's nothing happening here. There's not a supply chain thing that you're hitting it and you're fucking them up. Like, this was clearly to stop people from fleeing, intimidation. And I guess from the Russian side of things, they're saying, oh, we didn't do it. This isn't even our artillery. Like, you can see that this is Ukrainian stuff, and we didn't do it. But apparently in Telegram, which is like, an app where like it's a big messaging app, it's used, I think, a lot more internationally, but especially in the situation in Ukraine, and it's just easier to kind of communicate and get mass communiques out that way. Also, it's used in Russia. Apparently there was like pro-Moscow journalists using the Telegram app and saying like, hey, like, there's been a successful Russian missile strike on, Ukrainian train station. And they were hyping it up, but then they scrubbed those Telegram messages because they realized, like, hey, the death toll here is very high, and this isn't a good thing anymore. And I feel like that's kind of the Russian state media, I guess, gameplay here, which is to be like, hey, like, we're going to push a narrative that we are being successful, but we are not going to push the narrative that we are committing atrocities in Ukraine. We don't want that to come out. And so they publicly will say, hey, no, that's not us. That ain't us. We didn't do that if it's too big. But if it's minor stuff, they're saying, yeah, this is part of our operation to denazify Ukraine. This is how it's supposed to go. So I mean, essentially, it was just a really fucking messy situation. Once again, just 50 dead. When I initially heard it, it was like dozens like was like plus 34 or 30, and now it's like 50. So I mean, it's definitely just a really fucking gross, dark situation where people are trying to already, leave and get out. This is definitely, both events have caused kind of like a bit of a chain reaction in terms of like upping up the sanctions and like NATO movement. I believe the United States are going to send a Patriot missile system to Slovakia, backfilling for the NATO member country after it sent a Soviet-built S-300 air defense system to Ukraine. So, I mean, that's kind of a big thing just because, like, it's a very blatant, like, point-to-point, hey, we are giving NATO support via weapons. Now, granted, we're still doing that. That's just more lethal aid. We're just not calling it lethal aid anymore. But that's a big thing. Also, another thing from this Washington Post article that I saw that was really kind of unsettling to me. The one of the missiles that they sent, there was a fragment of it that's in the, and I say fragment, but it's a huge missile component. I mean, it's a missile, and obviously, like, it's just like, I think it's kind of like a bullet where it's like, obviously the payload is up front and the rest of it's kind of the shell or something. I'm not sure. I'm not an expert on that, but essentially this fragment, it says in Russian, for the children, which is just very gross. Because essentially they're saying, like, we are doing this, we're shooting these, we're firing these missiles, we're doing these things for the protection of the children, And it's just like, what are you doing? You're killing people. You're literally sending children to the hospital. But that shit is eerie and kind of sticks with me a little bit. But very just, I don't know, it's wow shit. But speaking more on the aftermath, the UN suspends Russia from Human Rights Council. Pulled this article from CNN Politics. But essentially, part of, like I said, the fallout, aftermath of this is now Russia has been kicked from the Human Rights Council. The vote was 93 in favor, 24 against, and 58 abstentions. One of the bigger, obviously, against votes was China, just because they're a big ally of Russia. But I mean, essentially, to me, a lot of the UN shit is like filler. It's filigree. It's stuff that makes you feel good and makes you feel like you're a humanitarian in a civilized society. Blah blah blah. But it is a big symbolic move, I feel, because it's saying, hey, you guys were a part of this council. You have veto power on things. Now we're taking you out of that equation because the things you're doing are making us do that. It's like, it's a call response thing, I feel. It is, though, once again, symbolic, right? Like, it's not like these are doing anything. These aren't going to lead to those war crimes being tried or anything of that nature. Russia, though, has, I believe it was like Sergei Lavrov or whatever came out and said it or what have you, but more or less it's like, okay, fine, you can't kick us out, we're leaving type vibe. So they've withdrawn, but I mean, they've just been suspended from the council. It's not like it matters how they feel about it. But it's definitely one of those things that we'll see in terms of like, are things going to get, worse in terms of like them getting further and further isolated? Is there going to be a reality where maybe they aren't even in the UN at all? I don't know. Also, there have been an up in sanctions. I'm really pulling this article for kind of attribution, but from NPR, UK sanctions the daughters of Putin and Foreign Minister Lavrov. More or less, just there's just been a upheaval of more sanctions, more like specific sanctions in terms of like the daughters of Putin. I didn't even know he had multiple daughters. Honestly, I learned a little bit more about this man like every week, every other week. Also, in terms of like Foreign Minister Lavrov, it's also his family, which kind of helps hit harder, I guess, is the idea, because like a lot of times, people are just going to move the money around. Organizations are going to move the money around. So it's not like it matters. I believe the U.S. has done more in terms of upping up their sanctions against more banks, cutting them off from SWIFT, stuff like that. more declarations like, hey, we're not doing gas, we're not doing oil. But it does remain to be seen here. Germany has still not fully committed, which honestly I get. I think a lot of people are putting pressure on Germany to say, hey, you guys need to stop working with them. You need to stop fucking with them. They're doing war crimes. They're committing atrocities. But at the end of the day, it's always more than that. Like, Germany is dependent on the energy that it gets from Russia. They wouldn't have made this crazy, intricate pipeline that they have to get it if they didn't need it as bad as they did. I actually learned a little bit more about that from, The Daily? Apparently it's the Nord Stream 1. We've covered Nord Stream 2. That was the pipeline that they didn't go forward with. That's what they've made and everything. But Nord Stream 1, essentially, it was like this undersea pipeline, and it's super complicated. I believe like 800 miles. You had to like cut into the underground sea and like get this pipeline shit going, and so that you could funnel this shit faster, this gas and stuff like that, I guess. Crazy shit. And I think people want Germany to do a full stop, and it's like, if you do that, you're hurting your own people. And obviously, someone here in America, I'm feeling the sting of inflation, period. So this whole shit was just more reason to heap more on top of it. But goddamn, like, it's even more so for places that are actually dependent on those things. Like, it's not just some wheat for them. It is literally their big export they use to fuel homes and fuel economy, like their businesses and shit. So, I understand more hesitancy there. I mean, that's my personal opinion. I've heard some articles and editorials like equating to this as like, well, you're showing support for Ukraine with one hand, and then your other hand, you're fueling Russia's war chest. And it's like, I guess, but like, honestly, you guys have kind of heard my take on the sanctions. I kind of feel like they're just superficial. In multiple cases, if you are not if you're a well-off country, then you're going to be fine. And even if you're not a well-off country, you will tourniquet the situation and find a way to make it work. And once you get so far along, then you eventually just go, hey, well, fine, we just won't negotiate with America because they aren't doing anything but trying to block us. So I don't really feel like it helps situations. I don't feel like it brings people to the table. It just kind of forces people to isolate and survive without, which is really counterintuitive to the American plan, because we are a country that wants things from other people, and we are trying to block them with our money and stuff. It's just really weird. But, whatever. We might continue that on another episode. That concludes our Russia-Ukraine segment, and went a little longer than I expected, but some KBJ update. She is confirmed by the Senate as first black woman on the Supreme Court. Flowers, flowers, flowers. Actually, I'm going to hit the break from that, but this is from USA Today. Thank you for this news you're bringing me. Ooh, Yes. Okay, we're back. But Ketanji Brown Jackson, 116th Justice, first black woman, has made it on the Supreme Court. She won the vote 53-47. 3 Republicans stepped over. Susan Collins of Maine, Lisa Murkowski. Oh, I'm sorry, Miss Lisa. Lisa Murkowski of Alaska, and Mitt Romney of Utah. They both came over. I especially liked what Suzanne Collins had said, and Mitt Romney, more or less just to the fact it's like, she's qualified. She's qualified. Like, why are y'all being nasty? So it was cool to see this happen. There were some Republicans that walked out at towards the end of the confirmation. Everyone's clapping, whatever. You see Ted Cruz being a little fussy bitch, and he leaves with his fake ass, weird ass beard. I guess some others too, but overall it's a dub. She's won. Now that doesn't mean it's going to be like an instant transfer. The person she's replacing, Stephen Breyer, sorry, he is going to be, obviously retiring, and so there's like a few months of turnover, and then she's going to be moving into the seat. So that's fucking cool. Let's fucking go. I honestly thought that the process was going to take a little bit longer, but they wrapped up 9 days earlier than I even thought, at the bare minimum. So I was like, hell yeah, super sweet, super fast. I get to give you the news, the good news, hot and quick, like a little Caesar's pizza. I mean, if you want to go on the article and read some more, for sure, I would suggest it if you like to get back into the lore, re-educate yourself. But, just wanted to bullet through there. And then last but not least, I'm back on my page 6 shit. I can't leave. I don't know. I'm addicted to the tea. But also from USA Today, Will Smith blocked from Academy events for 10 years. Board of Governors decides after slap. So, not going to dwell on this too long. You know about the slap. We've talked about the slap on Isaiah's Newsstand. Essentially, the aftermath has officially been doled out. Even though Will Smith is obviously, he's left the Academy or what have you. They've decided, hey, we got to give him 10 years from April 8th, 2022. He's not allowed to be at the Oscars or any programs, or Oscars, I'm focusing on that. He's not allowed to attend Academy events or programs in person, virtually, including but not limited to the Academy Awards. So, it's news. I wouldn't say big in terms of relevancy, honestly. This is, once again, celebrity business. I don't really give that much of a shit. I do feel like it's awkward and cringy, though, that, this officially is getting dealt with because it happened live on camera. There's been plenty of nasty-ass, fucking shitty-ass individuals who we just deemed as, oh, it wasn't so bad, that was kind of cheeky or whatever, it's just Harvey Weinstein, me and Harvey Weinstein. I don't know. It is what it is. I guess if you guys have any reactions or whatever, feel free to, hit me up on the Google. What is my Gmail? You guys should know by now. The 8 people who listen. What is it? Isaiah News 1, right? Isaiah News gmail.com, whatever. You'll find me. But we can segue into shill mode. We can wrap it up here. Patreon.com/Isaiah News. I believe it is Isaiah News at gmail.com. You can find me there. With the Patreon, though, you do get the shout out. You do get the Discord access. Trying to build a community, do stuff. But yeah, like I said, that's pretty much it. Thanks for sticking with me if you hung out here. If not, hopefully I will see you on the next episode. Or regardless, I hope I see you on the next episode. Hope you keep it breezy. And hope I see you soon for some more good news. I love ya. Bye-bye. Mwah.